I've toured a great deal of facilities before, and I've definitely seen that staff have struggled with understanding process and the impact that their actions can take or have on a process when they're not consistent.
Rising above the buzz of ultrasonic cleaners and the clanking of stainless steel are the ideas and voices that are changing an industry. You're listening to the Beyond Clean podcast, the central nexus for the people, processes, and products that are improving our sterile processing world. Each week, we speak with frontline technicians, CEOs, engineers, and entrepreneurs with a common goal to help you fight dirty. Every instrument, every time. Whether you are tuning in for education or inspiration, we're glad you did. Now turn on those washers and turn up the volume. It's time to go beyond clean.
On this Vendor Spotlight, we speak with Nikhil Sheth, Marketing Manager for Nalco Water, an Ecolab company, and Don Rotter, Research, Development, and Engineering Program Leader at Ecolab. And we are going to be talking a little bit about AAMI ST108. So certainly everybody waiting for the release of that in 2023. And we're going to be talking in depth about Nalco Water, which is the water management division of Ecolab, and really getting a good, solid water management program in place, which is going to be an industry guideline coming very soon. So we're going to get right into it with Nikhil and Don after a short break.
From 17 studios, you're listening to Beyond Clean, the global voice of sterile processing.
Joining us now is Nikhil Sheth, Marketing Manager for Nalco Water, an Ecolab company, and Don Rotter, Research, Development, and Engineering Program Leader at Ecolab. I really appreciate you both joining me today. And let's start with you, Nikhil. Can you talk a little bit about your background and especially your experience with Nalco Water?
Sure, Justin. This is Nikhil Sheth. Like you mentioned, I'm a marketing manager at Nalco Water. I've been with the company for 10 years and spent it all focusing on healthcare. I have a lot of background in water safety and helping hospitals manage their risk with waterborne pathogen. Been in the industry for about 15 years, and I guess a cool stat, I've physically been in over 150 hospitals and traveled significantly for my role.
That's excellent. I mean, you've really gone and seen all the variations that comes with water management. I mean, I just know it seems like every hospital's got its own unique challenges. So I'm looking forward to talking through that today as well. And then Don, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll have you talk a little bit about Ecolab.
Sure. Thanks, Justin. Yeah, I'm Don Rotter. I'm a RD&E program leader for Ecolab. I've been supporting healthcare now for almost 12 years. I have about 20 years with Ecolab, and primarily in a customer support type position. And I've been supporting instrument reprocessing business for more than half of my career at Ecolab.
Wow, that's great. And, you're very involved with AAMI as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I've been supporting AAMI working groups since about 2012 and have served on ST79 committee as well as Working Group 95, which is working through ST108, which is due to release in the near future.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about Ecolab. And I'm going to have you kind of talk to the audience about a company that I'm sure they're all aware of, and maybe just give us kind of a high-level overview of everything that Ecolab does for the sterile processing industry.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Ecolab is a global leader in water, hygiene, and infection prevention solutions and services. Our purpose is to make the world cleaner, safer, and healthier, and to help businesses succeed while protecting people and vital resources. We have customers in more than 40 industries that choose Ecolab comprehensive solutions, data-driven insights, and world-class service to advance food safety, help maintain clean and safe environments, operate efficiently, and achieve sustainability goals. And Ecolab has always prided itself on the personally delivered service through dedicated field representatives who tackle our customers' toughest challenges every day. Today, our sales and service associates help our customers solve cleaning, sanitizing, water, and energy management challenges, and we're 25,000 strong. Ecolab has a long history of innovation based on chemistry, digital technology, and service to deliver customer value. We have 12,000 scientists, engineers, and technical specialists who focus on creating customer solutions in core technologies, including antimicrobials, dispensing and monitoring, personal and environmental hygiene, cleaning chemistry, water management, and data analytics.
You know, that customer facing representation is so helpful. And I think it really kind of tees up what we're talking about with Nalco as well, right? Because, you know, a lot of times you just run into these situations, you know, with various customers. And we'll talk about this in here in a couple of minutes too, but like instrument staining and, you know, different kind of results of water quality issues, and having somebody to really, you know, face those challenges with you alongside, because obviously sterile processing managers, directors, supervisors, they're still trying to, you know, manage their day-to-day responsibilities. And at the same time, they've kind of got, you know, something coming at them. And I just think having, you know, support as a partner is so critical. And Nikhil, let's talk about Nalco specifically and, you know, this water management business and how this all came together.
Yeah, Nalco Water, it's the water management arm of Ecolab. We're based out of Naperville, Illinois. And just like Don mentioned, we operate in many different industries, right? Downstream, chemical, power, textile care, paper. But we also really focus on healthcare. And, you know, we have a very strong national team. We serve over 1,100 hospitals in North America, and we have a footprint all over the U.S. with over 500 dedicated sales and service reps. And when you look at hospitals specifically and you look at the water, we help with total water management, right? Our goal is to really help customers reduce, reuse, recycle water. But when it comes to healthcare, we also really focus on ensuring water safety and making sure patients and staff are safe from water. When you look at a hospital, you know, the three biggest water use in a hospital are, you start with the biggest use, it's domestic. So that's water used for hand washing, toilet flushing, used in the kitchen. We have programs there specifically helping customers manage risks with waterborne pathogen from a health perspective. You look at the second biggest water use, it's HVAC, right? It's water used for comfort, cooling, and heating. That's about 20% on a typical water use. And there we have programs with helping customers manage from a performance perspective, making sure they're using the water efficiently, they're reducing water, they're reducing the energy associated with it, they're reducing the emissions associated with it. So again, Nalco Water has been leader in that space, and we're excited to launch into the third biggest water use in a hospital, which is medical device reprocessing. So we're excited to launch this program and excited to talk to you a little bit more about this during this podcast.
Yeah, I'll tell you, even that HVAC piece, when you talk about, you know, the air quality in the operating room, that's kind of an under-acknowledged area, especially when it comes to the water aspects of it. You hear a lot of the conversation, you know, still somewhat muted in the HVAC area, but not so much focus on the water quality that's feeding those systems, right? So that's also interesting. But we're going to be talking about specifically this medical device reprocessing space today. And I kind of kick this off a little bit talking about instrument staining and, you know, wet packs is another one. All of these things, Don, are really a threat to productivity and quality in sterile processing and perception of the quality of the department, you know, when the product gets to the operating room for use, right? And if there's an issue with staining, I've seen a few instances where the staining conversation really just takes over surgical services and it becomes a big call to action. The Joint Commission is always looking for staining and instrument quality. And so I thought maybe you could characterize this situation from your area of experience as well. Like you said, you spent over a half of your career in this area. So I'm certain if we sat down and just, hung out by the campfire, you'd probably have 4 hours of stories to talk about all the various situations that have arisen.
Yeah, I could tell you lots of stories, Justin. It's critical that instruments be ready for patient use, right? And anytime departments are dealing with instrument staining or the perception of staining, everything comes to a halt, right? Because ultimately their biggest concern is, are these patient ready? What's the risk if I use these on a patient, et cetera? And the last thing the OR wants to see is staining, right? So what you mentioned is pretty much a all hands on deck situation that plays out in most sterile processing departments today, if and when this occurs. And because there's so many different owners of the process, so many different contributors at least, right? We've got facilities, we've got those supplying the steam, we've got vendors that are supplying the goods that are used, we've got equipment manufacturers. Everybody gets pulled in to support the investigation that plays out. And unfortunately, it's never a quick one, right? It's a process elimination approach that most facilities have to take to solve that issue. And, when the OR is down at the end of the day, there's a patient laying on the table who's not receiving the care they need. That's one of the problems that we're looking to solve, is creating better control over the inputs, which includes water quality. Because when you don't have water quality at a specific specification, you're basically, dealing with a process that's completely out of control.
And Nikhil, you were talking about safety, right? Like the safety related to water quality. But I also kind of heard this underlying theme about, the environment and sustainability, from that environmental perspective too. Do you want to speak on that some about, kind of what you're seeing out there in the industry today?
Yeah, actually focusing specifically on instrument reprocessing, we've spent a lot of time over the past year and a half talking to a lot of customers, understanding the voice of customers, right? And what we've learned is SPD in general, it's a very regulated process and compliance-based space, right? But what we've learned is when it comes to water, there's no standardization, right? I've found departments that are using city water for some of their critical water needs, right? For final rinses and makeup for sterilization. There is sometimes, just because sterile processing, they're focused on reprocessing instruments. But at times when you ask them, hey, what water is going to this area? There's sometimes confusion and lack of understanding of what water serves what area. So really, it's an area where I think standardization can help. And that's what the ST108 is hoping. And we can talk a little bit about some of the main components of ST108. I think when it comes down to it, if with proper management, you can really impact, like you said, not only from the safety perspective, but also from the performance perspective, right? You're really efficient. You have confidence that water isn't the cause for some of the issues that Don touched upon.
Yeah. And Don, I thought maybe you could speak on one other thing, and then maybe we can dive into how Nalco is really addressing this. But, that standardization component is really, always an interesting challenge for sterile processing, because everything in that department is guided by processes and industry guidelines and recommended practices. And I feel like we see things a little bit tighter maybe for the operating room than we have historically for sterile processing. Although I do believe that there are significant movements towards clearing up some of that gray area and creating standardization, but where I think it really hits home on a day-to-day basis for departments is when they start preparing for, surveys and accreditation. And that's when all of a sudden that gets exposed. And sometimes, their window may be opening up in a very short period of time, and then they're faced with one of these challenges, or the lack of standardization becomes really apparent. And all of a sudden it kind of moves into a reactive state. Would you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's very much status quo that, facilities are looking to improve upon their processes. They know accreditation surveys are coming. They know they're trying to do as much as they can with limited resources. They're constantly dealing with training challenges with new staff coming in, and they're constantly changing products, right? Different vendors, selling them different products. So they're always looking for value from that standpoint, but it brings additional challenges, right? Anytime you're changing a process, you've got to take a look at how is that going to impact the throughput? How is that going to impact, your understanding and knowledge of those products and how they work in systems? And, I've toured a great deal of facilities before, and I've definitely seen that staff have struggled with understanding process and the impact that their actions can take or have on a process when they're not consistent. Take instrument loading, for example. You can load a washer with instruments, and two different people may do it two different ways, and that can have an impact on the output.
Yeah, it really can. And, you made a really good point about the different products that may be coming in. And sometimes, there could be sort of an unknown cause. It might not even be product related, right? They could be doing construction down the street. And Nikhil, to your point, if they're using tap water, all of a sudden they become subject to the public water supply. And yet the first thing that they're going to go to is what are the products and what are the processes? The next thing you know, they're like deconstructing, the entire reprocessing environment to figure out which product, and that can pit those vendors, against each other a little bit, we're not causing that. And I think really a conversation around stabilizing the water quality, the source of the water, the treatment of the water can really stabilize sterile processing very similarly, right? So how does Nalco do that? And how do you get back to what Don was saying on, compliance and creating that standardization? How do we tie this all together?
Justin, yeah, that's a great point. And really what it comes to is helping customers meet the requirements. So currently TIR 34 is the guidance in place. And like Don mentioned, the AAMI standard will be published shortly, anticipating in 2023. And when you look at the main component of the AAMI standard, one of the normative sections is a water management program, right? And that what that's really doing is defining how they're going to manage water. So when you look at that section, it starts with defining the teams, right? What are the roles and responsibilities of your program team, right? So the recommendation from that standard, when you look at it in its draft format right now, it's having executive sponsorship be part of it, having your facilities team be part of it, infection prevention and control, someone from the medical device reprocessing team be part of it, clinical engineering. So, it's critical to have that team. And it's also important not only have internal people, but your external people be part of the team too, right? The vendors that are providing you these services and solutions. I think it starts with building that water management program, having that team defined, understanding your water systems and how it flows through the department, and understanding where your risks are, making sure you're using the proper category of water you have in that department. And then following that validation plan, right? Which is once you define that, monitoring the water on a regular basis, making sure you're meeting those water quality and operating parameters.
I heard you loud and clear there about having this water management program, right? And then there's like the validation, the testing, et cetera. So, and then pulling all those vendors in and getting everybody to be part of that. So it's a successful program, right? It's all about that communication. But I'm assuming that Nalco is kind of at the heart of that. Like somebody has to be central to that effectiveness of that program and sort of creating that environment of communication and managing the program. Is that the role that you play?
Yeah. So the new Nalco Water program we're launching for sterile processing, there are three main components for it. It really starts with helping customers build that water management program specifically for their sterile processing department. So coming in, doing a survey and putting together a risk assessment, right? Helping them understand where the water's coming from and where it goes, helping them understand the risks, defining the categories of water and where it's going, and then really defining the verification and validation steps, right? What are they going to monitor? How frequently to ensure that their plan is working? So, when you look at the verification step, it's really focused on the analytical testing. And this is what we can help the customers with following that sampling protocol we have laid out in their water management plan. So doing some water chemistry testing, pH, conductivity, hardness, ionic contaminants, TOC, and then also from the microbiome perspective, right? Doing heterotrophic plate counts and endotoxin testing. And then we also have an independent division within Nalco Water called our Water Purity Solutions that can help customers with equipment and services for their water treatment system to achieve that high purity water. So it really helps them meet the water quality specifications laid out in TIR 34 and upcoming ST 108, and then help them with the preventative maintenance and ongoing support of services.
Yeah, you really hit one of my favorite topics, which is preventive maintenance. Nobody likes surprises. And at the same time, maintenance is kind of a hard thing to chase, right? And sometimes the maintenance is overseen by biomedical engineering. Sometimes maintenance is overseen by facilities. Sometimes maintenance is overseen by the sterile processing department themselves. Sometimes there's a lack of clarity on who is responsible for the maintenance program and then whether or not it's been done, because it may be another department's responsibility. And sometimes that visibility can be a real challenge. And I know we're going to talk about that as well in a minute here, is just having kind of this revolution around technology and access to that information and dashboarding. And so we're going to dive into that with Don. But even before we do that, Don, I really understand sort of like how these two pieces work together, right? Because the Ecolab products, are going to work better if the water quality is right? And it's going to enhance what you're able to deliver to the customers. So now that we've kind of set the stage that Nalco has put in this water management program together, that it's running effectively, that all that preventive maintenance and the testing and everything else is being validated. Now that we have that foundation and that baseline, what can you really do with the Ecolab line of products?
I think the bottom line is everybody's detergents are going to work better when the water quality is more pristine. But what we don't want to do is offset what we've achieved through reprocessing. So we've sent those instruments through, they've been cleaned, they're disinfected, and now, we throw microbial soup on them at the tail end of that wash cycle, which defeats the purpose. So when we've solved all the water quality issues, Ecolab offers new breakthrough chemical technology in a new product portfolio. We have program dashboards, we have washer performance indicators, and a complete central sterile program that I can give you more insight on. Ecolab's always been innovating on the chemical side, and in the chemical space, we've provided concentrate solutions in the past that have provided reduced packaging waste, have created more storage space on the shelf for customers, and have more uses per container. Our newest detergents, which are ultra concentrated products and concentrates, have cutting edge raw material technology. Some of the latest technology available on the market today is in these products, which results in enhanced cleaning outcomes and really best in class performance.
All right, Don. So I'm just a super nerd for technology. I mean, I've been playing around with computers since I was in 8th grade, which is a lot more common for the younger generation today, but not so much those of us that are approaching our 50s. And I don't know that I would have ever envisioned any kind of integrated technology, especially around, detergents and other reprocessing chemicals and essentials. So you've really kind of piqued my interest here on, what you mean around dashboards and integrated technology that's part of your central sterile program. Can you maybe start with the dashboards and just, kind of give me some overview on that?
Yeah, so the CSP, or Essential Sterile Program, as we call it, it consists of a number of different components. With every wash process, you want to verify that the process is in control, right? And so a lot of companies provide process indicators or test strips that you put in the washer. That's essentially what we have as well. Process indicators, they're soil challenge tests used in washers and ultrasonics to verify the functionality of those pieces of equipment. And what we've done is we've created an app-based process manager. So this is where the technology comes in, right? So a lot of people collect these results in binders, and they have little tech sheets and things like that they fill out that, you talk about responsibilities and traceability and things like that. These sorts of things get lost through these types of manual processes. So really what Ecolab has done by creating this process manager is it helps the end user, the technician, as they follow a standard process when they're loading those test pieces or they're loading those indicators in the washer. It takes them through a more standardized process. And then ultimately, when those results are made available, they're housed in a digital platform, right? So we have this online data platform which houses digital dashboards. These can be customized to showcase data that is most meaningful to the customer.
What I love about this integrated technology and the dashboards piece is, you're getting data from those day-to-day standardized processes, not just from observation. And sometimes when people are being observed, and you're trying to troubleshoot, because we talked about this level of account support, you're coming in and you're collaborating and partnering with the department. But sometimes when people are being observed, you're not really getting a reflection of what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis across the entire workforce. And so what's great about this is I'm assuming there's some trending data, and it can really help you and those account managers be much more effective in that partnership, because the data is really more representative of the aggregate whole of the day-to-day for that facility. Is that right?
Absolutely. Through these dashboards, we can create views on system-wide levels or system level, hospital level, down to the individual user and washer disinfector that's being tested. And that can help create visibility of what's going on. It can help create opportunities for training or enhancement, or maybe it'll highlight the fact that, 2 cycle settings aren't exactly the same. So there's significant value there that isn't captured today because these systems aren't widely used.
So what I love about your CSP program, Central Sterile Program, just so make sure everybody knows, I'm using an acronym. What I love about it is really this incredible value add, which is the unlimited supply of washer indicators and holders for CSP customers. Can you tell us about that? And then I want to talk about a couple of the products too.
Yeah, Justin, it's been in my experience that, you go into a facility, you start asking questions about how they're running their indicators, what their results have looked like in the past. And, you ask what staff have done if they've had a failure on a test. And, sometimes they allude to the fact that these tests are costly and they can't, they don't want to run another one because of that, because of the consumable costs, which really shouldn't be a factor when you're talking about, getting control of your process, right? So we've eliminated that factor so that the end user can feel empowered and not even question the need as to whether they need to run that test again. They just go ahead and do it because they have the consumables at their fingertips.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the products. Both are OptiPro, but one's ultra concentrate and concentrate, and also the gel instrument pre-cleaner. So let's start with the ultra concentrate and concentrate. Can you talk about OptiPro?
Yeah, OptiPro multi-enzymatic automated detergent ultra concentrate is our first ultra concentrate product. We've had concentrates in the past, but we now have this product available. It's a multi-enzymatic used for automated washing. We also have OptiPro Neutralizer Plus that we've added to the category, which is also an ultra concentrate. And we have a manual detergent concentrate that's also a multi-enzymatic that can be used in manual cleaning and ultrasonic cleaning. And as I mentioned earlier, these products contain the latest in raw material technologies. So really the performance is truly a cut above the rest. And with concentrated chemistries, there's always value in the reduced packaging, the reduced waste, and the more uses per container. And so that's certainly something that's realized with these products for end users.
And even the maintenance, right? Just getting it hooked up again. You're just going through products. So even setting up the lines again is less frequent, meaning, less chance for running out and not realizing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, staff definitely see the benefit of not lugging around these large containers of product. 15-gallon drums, even 5 gallons can be difficult to lift. So the less they have to change these products out, there's certainly the benefit to them in just managing. And that includes, even placing orders for a new product.
So let's talk about the pre-cleaner, because this one's kind of, I don't know. I think it's so important. Point of use cleaning is just something that and preventive maintenance. They're probably my two favorite topics. And, really it has everything to do with blood can dry in 20 or 30 minutes. And when it does, it starts to corrode stainless steel instrumentation. And when we talk about trying to figure out where the stain is coming from, sometimes it comes from another instrument that might be rusting, and it could be rusting in aluminum. So you don't even know. And then essentially when it goes into the steam sterilizer, it takes that rust and just transfers it all over, the other instrumentation that are in the set over time. And so I just think pre-cleaning is critical. Every time I would do education for the operating room, I would really emphasize this. And this is pretty interesting, just, the amount of duration on this one with the OptiPro Gel instrument pre-cleaner. So tell us about that.
Yeah, OptiPro Gel instrument pre-cleaner is a surfactant-based gel. This blue, it's easy to see when you apply it to instruments, so it enhances the coverage and the ability to audit that coverage of a tray and make sure that those instruments are getting pre-treated when they need it. Delays in transport are always a possibility, right? So you need to pre-treat those instruments even in the case that there's a delay, right? That's unexpected. And OptiPro Gel instrument pre-cleaner, which comes in both a BOV or bag on valve platform as well as a trigger spray bottle, provides the ability for staff to adequately address these instruments for transport.
So I'll tell you, I'm thinking about labor and delivery, Don. Like that's the thing that sticks out to me, so much, because sometimes they're not really in that circle of reprocessing within surgical services. They may be remote, and that time adds up so fast, so incredibly fast. And so, and I see more and more facilities having to reprocess clinic instruments as they start to centralize it versus it being done at the clinic level.
Absolutely. So delays, regardless of people's take on whether that's best practice or not, it's likely, right? In today's modern way of doing things where people are outsourcing, that likelihood is a greater possibility. So the benefit of OptiPro Gel is that, when instruments are properly prepared for transport, according to OSHA recommendations, which is, placing these instruments in sealed containers with the products applied to it, we can maintain moisture and prevent drying for up to 72 hours, which certainly extends the window of time for reprocessing and keeping those instruments moist.
Yeah, and you want to protect that investment, that capital investment you've made in these instruments. And so you talked a lot about that CSP program. I really love it. We've got a case study, some bonus content, in addition to the case study as well, some additional information. But I really think the listeners are going to be most interested in this case study from South Coast Health. And so that's available as bonus content on our smartphone app. You just got to download the app for iPhone or Android, and then you open up this episode and click on the gift box, and you'll be able to review and download the PDF document that we have available that includes this case study. Some of the things that I want to point out too is how they can engage with you and your team and what you'll do for them, which is reviewing the categories of water that they're using for each step in the department, look at the routine water monitoring program and washer verification process, and really consult to, add some details to that, right, Nikhil?
Yeah, no, you hit it on the spot. Really see where you are in the journey with water. Each city has different water quality, so see where you're at. Consult us if you need more support. We can help you understand more information on TIR 34, also the upcoming standard, and see where some of the gaps are and how you can close those gaps.
All right, that's great. And I do want to emphasize just the presence and support that's provided by the local Ecolab rep. So certainly reach out, educate yourself around ST108. You can follow them on LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the various social media platforms. But most importantly, visit the website ecolab.com. And when you click there, if you look at the top left, you'll see right next to Ecolab is Nalco Water if you want to learn more information about Nalco Water, as well as the full line of products offered by Ecolab. Don, Nikhil, you both did a great job. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Justin.
That was Nikhil Sheth, Marketing Manager for Nalco Water, an Ecolab company, and Don Rotter, Research Development and Engineering Program Leader at Ecolab. And I'm really impressed with Don's experience, just working with Amy and all of the different work groups, but learning more from Nikhil about the Nalco Water management business and really putting together an effective program, I think is so critical. And it's on the horizon. It's coming. It's something that everybody's going to want to make sure they have. And I know departments have always needed support in this area. So having some industry guidelines to kind of bring that together and put more emphasis on it, I think can really be hugely important to sterile processing departments, because I do know just how many times water quality issues can just rear their ugly heads and put the department on screech. We also have integrated technology, dashboarding, trending, which is something that frankly, I don't know that I would have ever thought you would have when it comes to chemicals and detergents. And so I think that's a very exciting development. And finally, I do want to point everybody back to our smartphone app for iPhone or Android, where you'll be able to get bonus content, including the OptiPro case study and a testimonial from South Coast Health on CS chemistry. So make sure to check that out. Follow them on LinkedIn and Facebook. Go to the website ecolab.com, and up there in the top left, if you want to learn more about Nalco Water, there is a link directly through there as well. And finally, reach out to your local Ecolab rep for more information and educate yourself on ST108. That's going to do it for this vendor spotlight. But as a reminder, you can help support Beyond Clean by subscribing on Apple, Amazon, or Google Podcasts. You can also find us on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or simply search for Beyond Clean on your favorite podcast application. And you can get bonus content like the one for this vendor spotlight, but you've got to download that smartphone app for iPhone or Android. And while you're there, we'd appreciate a rating and a review, because your feedback is important to us here at the show. If you do have any topics or guests that you'd like to recommend on a future episode, or even just general feedback for us, send an email to info@beyondclean.net. Thank you for listening to this vendor spotlight on Beyond Clean.